Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade tabletop role-playing rules by World of Darkness. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. Listeners should know that this podcast is intended for a mature audience and will include strong language and mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and so forth, that may bear resemblance to entities living, dead, or undead is strictly coincidental. My name is Rena Henze, and for tonight's game, I will be your storyteller. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Old Ways Podcast's Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles Shards of San Francisco. I am your storyteller Rena, and tonight we are introducing a very special new character. So I'd like to welcome John back to our campaign. John, thanks for coming back. I know it's been a little bit. We all miss Vince.
It's been a minute, right?
Right, yeah. But we're glad to have you back, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm John. I'm formerly Vince from Season 1 and the start of Season 2. But I'll be playing a new character who is friendly, amicable, warm, Sylvestre La Violette, Quebecois hunter.
And what's Sylvestre's clan?
Sylvestre is of Clan Gangrel. He
Wonderful.
doesn't like you using his surname. And really, don't call him Sly. He really hates that. Sylvester Stallone's career baffles him, and he's just mad at the guy.
And also, like most Canadians, he doesn't like his name being shortened.
No, Reed does not care for it.
Really doesn't. All right, so let's pick up this evening with Sylvestre. So, Sylvestre, it's February 17th for you, 2023. You're in Oakland, where you've been for quite a bit, although you only recently returned back in 2021 after a bit of a hunting expedition. Only 5 years, not that long, up in your native Canada. And it's a cold, drizzly sort of night, but considering you come from the frozen north, it's actually really not that cold, and you tend to laugh at the humans who act like temperatures in the 40s are freezing and they're all going to die if they don't wear their parkas. But, it's cold and drizzly. It's been a little bit of a weird time for you, right? Big changes have been happening in San Francisco across the Bay. And you've been working with Mariam Amralahi, who has recently been elected chief of Gangrel, Clan Gangrel. And by elected, I mean there was a large clan gathering. She said, I'm going to be chief. 5 other people said, well, we want to be chief. And then there was a bit of a kerfuffle, and everyone said, okay, Mariam, you're in charge.
She really earned the ticket.
Typically how things go for Clan Gangrel, right? But you've known Mariam for some time, and she's moved out of the Camarilla territory. She used to be the Primogen, and you have a much better working relationship now that she's an Anarch versus Camarilla. But on this particular evening, she's asked you to meet with her in one of the parks in Oakland, just a nice, quiet, secluded location near where you normally spend your time anyway. You don't, like most country gangrel, you don't like being inside if you can at all avoid it. So she's asked you to meet because she has some updates for you and some instructions on your next steps. So on this particular night, you wander into the park. Why don't you describe Sylvestre for our listeners as you're entering the park as the drizzly cold rain is coming down?
Yeah, Sylvestre's, he's, when I said short earlier, I meant it. He's about 5'4". He has long, greasy, matted, ginger hair, heavy stubble. He walks with a slight limp on his left leg, and he's wearing cargo pants, tucked into combat boots, a flannel shirt, and a denim jacket over. He has a beanie in his pocket, but he's not wearing it. Nobody's going to call him on that. He's also got a guitar over his shoulder, just upside down on the strap.
More for camouflage than anything else? Or does he actually play the guitar?
He would tell you he does. Members of Clan Gangrel that are actually musically trained would tell you that that is not the verb for what he does. What he does is he hurts the guitar. Was inspired to pick it up during the 60s and really just loves the sound it makes, loves telling ballads of stuff cool Gangrel have done and stuff he's done. He's not a musician. He's definitely not a talented musician. And the reason he's able to be almost like a storyteller within Clan Gangrel is because when people tell him to shut up, he breaks their face. So that's why he's a storyteller.
Absolutely. Makes sense for Sylvestre here. So as you amble into the park, you're pretty familiar with this location. It's quiet. Because of the drizzle, there's not a whole lot of people out here. Not a whole lot of humans, even though it's still fairly early-ish in the evening. It's only about 8 p.m. by the time you come in. You do hear the squirrels nestling in some leaves, and there's a few insects around. And, of course, the pigeons. Mariam has quite the army of pigeons. You don't know exactly what she does with them, but you know wherever Mariam goes, there's going to be a flock of pigeons in the vicinity. And sure enough, seated on a park bench under a large tree, you see Mariam. She's a petite woman about your height, actually. She's wearing long trousers, boots, a tunic, and a dark green hijab over her hair, pinned very neatly. She looks very well put together. And she's talking in a low voice to a pigeon that's seated on her wrist. It's got a black patch over one eye, and she just says, "Well, Edgar, if that's all, you can be off. Just make sure you find me here next time, okay?" And you hear a little coo from the pigeon, and Edgar flies off. And she looks up as you approach and says, "Good evening, Sylvestre."
Hey there now, Mariam.
Charming as ever. How are you finding this fine evening?
And he just sits down next to her. And he just takes out a pack of cigarette papers. There we go. Yeah, no, he just sits down next to her and takes out a packet of cigarette papers and just starts rolling up cigarettes, just licking the paper. And he's like, well, things ain't too bad. Just woke up, got out, and, well, I remembered I had an appointment with you, and I came straight over, huh?
Well, I do appreciate you remembering that we have an appointment. It's nice to know that I'm a priority. She smiles to let you know she's just teasing you.
Just gives her this shit-eating grin back, and he's just like, oh, well, you know, it's, when a friend makes time. So, how you been?
Well, you know, getting things in order. As much as one can with us. And she chuckles. Way too much paperwork involved in being chief, but hey-ho.
He just kind of looks up and he's like, you can write?
Yes, Sylvestre.
La-dee-da.
I know. So highfalutin and fancy of me, but that's why I'm chief.
Yeah, checks out, bud.
Well, I had a visit with Baron Voss over at the Independent Port, as we discussed, and he is more than willing to accommodate you as my personal envoy from the clan, if you're still willing, of course.
No, I'm super happy to do it. Get me into the city, get me messing around with some of the folks in there. No, that'll be good. I like what he's doing. I mean, I think it's still too big, but, being involved, I'll be able to break stuff down a little bit.
Well, it's a start. We can't just all descend into anarchy immediately.
I keep telling you, if we just put a bomb, just like in the mayor's office.
Sylvestre.
Just saying, it would solve a lot of problems.
And create quite a few more.
Yep.
No bombs, please.
He just shrugs and goes back to rolling cigarettes.
She shakes her head. There's a large population of us over there now, so you won't be standing out too much with the rest of the Kindred. And I've also been assured that there's plenty of park space for you to inhabit.
That's good. No, I don't care for cement, concrete all that much.
Who does? Well,
Ventru.
the other ones do, I suppose. Yes. Speaking of Ventru, have you heard what happened to our dear William Mallet the other night? Or have you been too underground?
No, I'd love to hear all about it.
Someone, and she pets a pigeon on the head. She says she's talking. Someone, we don't know who, of course, but someone engineered a massive pipe failure in his fancy glass building. And, well, let's just say it's not just him who's full of shit now.
Oh, that's good. That's a real good one. So, literally covered the whole building full of shit, right?
Yes.
Oh, bud, that's excellent. Love it.
I thought you would. And she pets one of the pigeons again and says, Sylvie told me all about it. She was nesting just outside his window. He never noticed.
That's the thing with all these high types. They don't look at what's right under their noses. They don't look at us. And that's their problem. And we're going to make it their problem forever until they're gone.
Yes. At the very least, I'm sure they're figuring out it was unwise to underestimate Clan Gangrel. But, and she gets a little bit more serious. You see her body language shift the way she does when she's going from friend to clan leadership, essentially. And she says, now, Sylvestre, it is very important that you do not take action against the hammer on your own without authorization. It could lead to some very, very bad retaliation.
Camarilla's bigger than any one vampire.
You remember. I'm so proud of you.
Well, after last time, and he strokes his cheekbone, which took a while to re-heal.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, yeah, no, I remember the lesson. I'm only to act with the pack. That's
right. And part of your pack for the foreseeable future will be Baron Voss and his, well, still calling them a coterie, I believe.
That's their word.
I know it's their word, but it's what we have. Their pack, let's say, will be part of yours. I understand the Baron has some plans, which you may find useful, and also perhaps pleasurable in many ways. But it is very important we not bring down the entire Camarilla on the Bay Area. And she leans in and she gets very serious for a moment. So you remember what they did in Alberta? The fires?
Yeah, and he kind of just looks down and he's like, yeah, I remember. I won't bring that down, no.
We protect the land, Sylvestre, and I know you care as much about that as the rest of us do. And part of our job in that is making sure we don't bring down the ones who don't care and will destroy the world around them just to watch everyone else burn.
Yeah, I got you, boss. He just kind of nods and looks down. He's like, I know I get carried away and all that, but I do listen. I do remember. I do my best to do you proud in there.
She smiles. She doesn't pat you on the shoulder or anything. She doesn't touch people, generally. She's not that kind of person. But she just nods and says, I know you do your best, Sylvestre, and that's why I picked you for this job. I trust you. Even if you get a little too gung-ho. And she reaches over as if she's going to touch you, but she just sort of pats the air above the left part of your chest and goes, that last hunter got a little bit too close, though.
I mean, he got as close as I had to get to be calm. You gotta lure them in. You gotta get them into the snare.
Just be careful.
All right, I'll be careful. So I'll be working with this Voss fella.
Yes. I think you'll get along, even though he's doing a lot of admin sort of things.
Yeah, he absolutely makes a face at the word admin.
She smiles. He's an agitator like you, but more on the kind side of things. Worked with, still works, I believe, with some of the local labor unions. That should appeal to you.
I raced hell with some of those fellas back in the day, yeah.
I'm sure
They're
you
alright
did.
bunch of boys.
Not just boys anymore, Sylvestre.
He looks down, he's like, yeah, sorry. They're a great bunch of folks.
There we go. I know it takes time to pick up the lingo, but you'll get there. But, he's got some plans. We have some plans, but I have a feeling we'll be rooting out some of the goose steppers in San Francisco. Not just on our side, on the human side.
And he visibly perks up at this. He's just like, oh, well, I'm always real happy to help with stuff like that, but I just, gives me this warm feeling that I had in my chest back when.
When the Baron and I discussed plans for the next few months, those were some things that were mentioned, and that's why I thought of you to be my envoy for this particular set of time. We'll see how it goes from there, but I do think your particular skills and talents will be put to good use, as well as your passions. And I think the Bay Area will be a better place for it, as long as you hunt with the pack.
He's about to give her a series of interesting facts about the Jaguar, but it's just like, no. She knows this already and doesn't care. No, I'll stick with the pack, and I'll do my, and I'll keep them safe, and I won't cross the line unprovoked.
That's as much as I can ask for.
Ah, perfect. And he just puts the little cigarette in his mouth, and he's just like visibly just patting for matches. He's just like, I don't use those lighters, not since they changed the taste. Does that make sense?
Yes, and also you do tend to accidentally drop things and singe your skin. No more fire-related incidents, I hope, since then?
No, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm. She smiles and pulls a box of matches out of her pocket and just gives you the whole box. I thought you might need them.
Cheers. He just lights up. It's just like, oh. So, into the city, visit this Voss feller. Do I have to call him Baron? Is he using the title?
From what I gather, others are calling him that. He did not choose the title for himself, which I feel you would appreciate more.
No, I do. Might be an alright sort of guy. Bruja, right?
Oh, yes. Very.
No, I think I heard a few things about him.
Do you remember Esmeralda from the Sect War? She's with him as well.
And he just gives his... If his grin earlier was just shitting, this is even further beyond that. He's just like, oh, fucking A. Oh, that's great.
Yes, I'm sure she'll enjoy hunting with you again. Cause quite some chaos.
Sure, look, a good time's a good time.
In answer to your question, I don't think you'll need to call Marcus Baron. Call him by his name. He'll appreciate it.
All right, yeah. Sounds good.
She stands up, and Sylvie the pigeon is on her hand, and she leans in and whispers something, and Sylvie nuzzles her face and then hops over to your shoulder. And Mariam smiles and says, Sylvie needs a new line of work since the building she was watching is now, gone to shit. So, and she smiles and says, Sylvie will be a point of contact. If you need to send me a message immediately and you don't have time to come yourself, send it with Sylvie. I know you don't care much for technology. I don't expect you to have a phone. So, Sylvie will act as our SMS.
It's just like, so I don't need to write a message and put it around her leg. She'll tell you things that I tell her.
Well, she looks at Sylvie, and Sylvie just sort of bobbles her head. Sylvie's a very intelligent pigeon.
And your messages will be to me in writing.
Yes, because she can't speak to you.
All right, yeah. Sounds good. And he's like, well, I guess I'm going to be that crazy pigeon man walking into the city. But,
Well, she won't always be with you. She'll be around. You just have to say her name, and she'll find you. Unless you want to be the crazy pigeon man of San Francisco, in which case I can happily oblige. And a cloud of pigeons just kind of rises up behind her.
And he's like, no, it's good. It's all good, boss. It's all fine. It's good. It's good now, boss.
Very well. I expect you to introduce yourself to the Baron within the next few days. Don't leave it too late. He'll be sending one of his own people here as an envoy as well, so we need to keep things equal. Don't take too long, but let me know if you need anything.
No, boss, I don't think I'll need anything. Just, you gave me some matches. I got my smokes. I got my knife. I got my guitar.
Yes, playing that in the parks of San Francisco might draw unwanted human attention, so perhaps be careful with the guitar.
He's just like, nobody likes it when I play anyway, except us, but, it's a big deal. I might inspire somebody, but, I will keep it to myself and maybe only play on Saturdays.
Yes, well, Saturday nights are all right for fighting, and you do tend to start a few fights when you start playing, so...
It always ends with one anyway, so why bother, eh?
Well, the Oakland Bears tend to spend some time over in San Francisco now, since their leader, Fuzzy, is one of Marcus's friends. So if you want to go bar hopping with the, she laughs, Bears, and get involved in a few fights, you can always tag along with them.
Oh, sound.
I'll leave you to your evening then. And she leans over and pats Sylvie on the head, and Sylvie pecks your ear. And Mariam says, we'll be in touch. And she disappears into the trees, followed by a flock of pigeons.
He just looks above the trees, trying to keep vague idea of where she's going. Just, Sylvie's still on my shoulder.
Yes. Sylvie's just kind of cocked her head and is looking at you, as if asking if you want her to stay, or...
You can stay if you want, I don't really give a shit. Just talk to animals. Never really took to that part of the blood. You can sit next to me. Please don't sit on my shoulder.
She kind of shakes her head side to side, like pigeons do when they're walking, except side to side instead of front and back. And she looks... If a pigeon could look offended, she looks offended.
No offense, just prefer not to have you on the shoulder.
She flaps off.
Thank you.
So, what does Sylvestre normally do on an evening when he's not meeting with his clan chief?
Not a lot to do, really. Gotta find ways to keep busy, and usually that's the hunt. But lately, things have been, gearing down here, getting ready for food to smoke. So, one last hunt out here, though, couldn't hurt, right? Just one last little old hunt. But I got one thing I gotta check first, and that's, I gotta check one thing. Make sure a certain somebody learned his lesson and has been staying in line.
So you want to check in on Jim Slater?
Yeah, Jim Slater. That's who I'm thinking of visiting.
All right, so it's, about 8:30 p.m. Jim should be home from his afternoon shift. He works down at a gas station. Pretty low-paying job, but it's the only kind of job he can really hold down. And he usually gets home about between 7:30 p.m. and 8 p.m., so he should be home by now. And usually like to wait at least an hour after he gets home to see if he falls back into his angry drinking pattern. because if you show up right away, he'll still be in his good behavior work uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So you head over in the rain to the rather dilapidated looking tenement house. All these apartments stacked on top of each other. They're pretty run down. They're not well taken care of. The building manager is never available whenever tenants need someone. And the building is owned by a company out in Arizona. So they're never available either because they don't actually have an office in California. And it's pretty low income housing. It's still expensive because it's the Bay Area, but it's on the lower end, and it's rent controlled because of city regulations. So you go up to the 6th floor of this building. Do you take the stairs, the elevator?
Stairs. Elevator's just a death box.
It really is. You don't like being trapped in those tiny spaces.
Do not care for it.
You notice that the lights between the 4th and the 6th floors are broken again, and the bulbs haven't been replaced, but you can see fairly well in the dark. You don't need them. And you make your way up the dirty, dark staircase to the 6th floor to apartment 615.
It's about the time where our boy Jim has usually had a drink or two. So, usually my check is, does the kid have any bruises? And I'd usually see him when he's out playing. But, because Jim and his wife don't much keep the kid in, don't give him much structure, and I don't much care to judge on that front. Folks got their own struggles, don't care about that. But it's when I see the bruises on the kid that I start to take exception. And I didn't see him playing today, so I'm thinking I might need to perhaps just have a little chat. Just pop in, make myself just press the flesh, as the politicians call it. So yeah, just a shave and a haircut, 2 bits, knock. Follow it with the 2 bits. Just wait at the door.
You knock on the door and you hear Jim's loud, angry voice saying, "Who the fuck is it? Betty, get the door." And you hear a woman's low voice saying something, and you hear Jim just swearing, says, "Get the fucking door, my show's on. I work hard all fucking day, you can get the fucking door." And a minute later, there's a very timid sort of sound of the little peephole cover going up and coming down, and then very quickly the door unlocks. And you hear Betty say, It's Sylvestre. Jim." She opens the door. She looks very frightened. You see this middle-aged woman. She looks middle-aged, but she can't be more than 31. But she's aged before her time. She's wearing jeans and a fairly old t-shirt with an apron over it. She looks very tired. Her hair's straggling around her face. She's got dark circles under her eyes. But she just looks up at you wide-eyed, and you hear a very frantic movement coming from further into the apartment.
Yeah, and Sylvestre just smiles, and it's not a pleasant thing to see. He doesn't consciously do it, but he looks at everyone that isn't a gangrel like game. And he knows he does it. He just doesn't care to stop. Evening, Betty. You, keeping well?
She just sort of nods, wide-eyed. She presses herself up against the wall, as she does pretty much every time you come by. A lot of people have this reaction to you. They sort of subconsciously press themselves up against the wall or go to the other side of the street. That people tend to avoid you, whether or not they know they're doing it. Betty knows she's doing it. She just sort of tries to melt into the wall, and she nods. It could be worse, Sylvestre. Jim's in there. He's had a long day.
That's all right. He'll make time for me, won't he?
Of course, always. Always time for friends.
Of course. And he just slinks through the doorway in just a beautiful fluid movement that there's no movement is wasted in how he carries himself, it's just real light and just soft steps, except for the left leg. That's a little bit heavier, but that can't be helped. He's just going to walk in and he's just going to push open the living room door and he's just going to stand there and just be like, well, now, Jim, how you doing, bud?
Jim has fairly apparently moved to his feet kind of hastily from this ratty old recliner. He's wearing jeans and a tank top of some kind, like what they call a muscle tank. It's stiflingly hot in here, as if the heat's been turned up way too high. Even though it is a chilly night, it shouldn't be this warm inside. And you see there's 3 cans of beer, open and presumably empty, on the table next to him. He's just turned the TV off. You see his hand hit the button just as you come in. But he's just sort of standing there looking, face kind of puffy. His thinning hair is wild, bit crazy, as if he hasn't done anything with it since taking his hat off and getting inside. And he's wearing ratty old slippers, and he looks at you and goes, Sylvestre, wasn't expecting you tonight. How you been?
Oh, I'm good, bud. I'm good. I just wanted to pop in. I was in the neighborhood, thought I'd just show my face with an old friend.
Oh, well, yeah. He stumbles over his words, and he's kind of backing up a little bit. Again, like Betty did when you entered the apartment. And you see, if you turn slightly, Betty's sort of pale, anxious face looking in through the doorway. She's wringing her hands a little bit. She looks absolutely terrified. We're fine. Ben's fine. He's in bed. Kid's gotta go to bed early, school night.
Yeah, of course. Little fella doing his homework?
Of course.
I mean, you're checking, aren't you? You're checking that your boy's doing.
And even with your limited contact with human society, it's a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a school night.
I know where little Ben sleeps, and I'm just gonna real soft footsteps walk down, almost soundless, and just look Jim in the eye as I open the door to the room and just poke my head in.
Well, you open the door, and it's, a room suitable for an 8-year-old. It's fairly messy, as many 8-year-olds are, but there's little plastic dinosaurs scattered all over the ground. You see a Lego set that you actually brought for him on his birthday last year that has been halfway assembled, but kids have a hard time with attention span, and if no one's helping them, they tend not to finish these things. But Ben is in his pajamas. He's got monster truck PJs, and he's just sitting in bed. He's not laying down. He's just curled up in a corner, and he's sucking his thumb, which is not something most 8-year-olds tend to do.
No, it is not. Very softly enter the room, close the door, and he just sits down at the end of the bed. He's just like, "You there now, bud? How's my little champ doing?"
Hi, Sylvestre. It's cold. I asked Daddy to turn the heat on, and he said, "What am I made of, money?" And then he turned the heat all the way on and said we weren't going to get food next week because I made him turn the heat on.
Sylvester brushes this kid's hair back, and he's just like, "I'll have a talk with your daddy. So I'll explain to him about the heat, and I'll make sure that there's money for food as well, little buddy. You're not going to go without, not while I'm around."
He doesn't have any bruises or anything. It looks like Jim's been behaving himself other than yelling at his kid. It's okay. Just, it was cold because it's raining and we didn't have heat at school today and I was so cold.
I just looked down at his blanket. The kid's blankets are way too thin for the environment that he's in and the shitty fucking apartment. He's just like, "You leave it with your Uncle Sylvester. I'm going to take care of you, right?"
Okay. I saw the Lego set, and he points at it.
No, I saw. It's real good, bud. So look, I wanted to check in with you. I'm I'm going to be out of town for a little bit. Going to be going off on some business.
Oh. Don't tell Daddy that.
He won't know.
Okay.
But,
he's nicer when you come.
Your daddy just needs structure. See, Ben, he's the type of guy that struggles without it and thinks he doesn't need it, but he does. And I'm here to remind him of that because, well, I'm your Uncle Sylvestre and that's what I do. You, other than that, how's school going?
I don't like math.
Numbers is important, kid. I didn't get them and I'm struggling nowadays without them.
But we're learning about birds in science class, and it's really cool. And I could name more birds because you told me about them, Uncle Sylvester. And my teacher said I'm doing real good with the birds.
That's great. So look, think of it this way. You ain't good with numbers, but you're good with the things that is. And that's one of them things that no one is going to teach you, but you just gotta learn about the world around you, and that's important. Just always try to learn. Alrighty?
Okay. I wanna be a. We had a jobs day where people from like old people like 30 come and talk about their jobs, and I want to be a. He slows down as if he's trying to pick out the syllables. Conservationist. Yeah. It was really cool. They take care of parks and you can be outside and you get to learn about animals, and he looks like his eyes are all lit up and he actually looks really excited.
Mm-hmm. And Sylvester just gives, it's still an ugly grin because he can't help himself what he is. He's just like, little buddy, conservation is real important. Remember, the way we made society was we got too big too fast, but so we gotta manage the land that's wild still. And that's what the sort of work that those folks do. It's real important. You gotta, how do I put it to you? How do I put it so you get it? You could wind up being a park ranger. You could wind up being like, what I used to do, and you can go out into the countryside for days and days and watch the animals and make sure folks are not burning things down.
You can the science lady, she said that you can make things better for animals and for people, and you can be all grown up and you don't have to wear a tie.
That is one of the perks. You don't gotta wear a tie. I ever tell you what when I finished school?
No.
When I finished school, you worked at petrol pump, you had to wear a goddamn tie. It was just... And he thinks nothing of cursing in front of a child. He's just like, it's just... You always had to wear a goddamn tie back then. It was always... No matter what you were doing.
And Ben looks up at you with wide eyes. Says, was this back in the castle's time? We were learning about the castle's time. That was a long time ago. Did you have to wear a tie in the castle's time, Uncle Sylvester?
Wasn't around in the castle time, but I think they wore cravats then, which is a kind of a tie, but a bit fancier. Usually made of fancy material. I don't know, pattern on them.
Like puppies? Daddy's Christmas tie is the only one. He's got a Christmas tie. I got it for him 3 years ago with Mommy, and it has puppies on it.
They didn't have ones that fun, little buddy, but stuff like that. So look, I'm gonna send you some blankies so that you're not so cold and you don't need the heating on, because your daddy isn't made of money. He is right there, but I'll have a talk with him about priorities, and yeah, we'll figure some stuff out. And he just ruffles little Ben's hair, and he's just like, you're a good boy, Benny. Grow up to be a good man.
I try to be a good boy, but Daddy says I'm a very bad boy sometimes. And that's why he has to yell, because I'm so bad.
And the hand goes down to his shoulder, and he's like, don't worry, buddy. You are, believe you me, you are a wonderful little boy. You are gonna grow up. But remember, you gotta always be honest. Always keep your word. Don't be too quick to trust everybody. And always look out for the little fellas. Guys like you are right now, okay?
Okay. And
alrighty.
And he leans in, he says, And I remember what you said last time, not to say it in front of Mommy and Daddy. He looks around like he's checking to make sure they're not listening. Fuck Nazis. And he smiles really big from ear to ear.
He's like, just the big evil grin in his back. He's like, that's right, little buddy, that's right. Fuck him.
I got to say the bad word. He just looks so pleased with himself and excited.
And he just looks at his watch and he's like, you can build your Legos if you want.
I can?
Yeah, you can turn on the light and build your Legos if you want. You don't have to stay in bed.
Awesome. And he jumps out of bed, throwing his blankets aside, and he just turns on the light and he starts digging out a box of Legos to go with his castle set.
He's just like, hey, you know what, bud? You can listen to some music too. Whatever you like.
Cool. You're the best.
Don't worry about it. And he's just gonna, on it, just turn, just the hunched shoulders, and he's just gonna, like, go towards the door. It's just, we need to have a talk. Betty's gonna have to be in on this as well, because she means well, but she's gonna need a bit of talking to as well.
You exit the kid's bedroom, you go into the hallway, and you look into the living room, and you see Jim is just sort of standing there. His body language is very much in fight or flight. You can just tell from his posture, but you can just smell the anxiety and the alcohol in his sweat. And you don't see Betty in here, but Jim is just standing there as if he was waiting for you.
Yeah, Betty might have cleared space. She's a smart woman. I'm just going to walk into their kitchen, just look him dead in the eye, and then just take my time like it's my house, walk into the kitchen and open the fridge.
You open the fridge and there's another 6-pack in there, and the one can, it looks like, from a previous pack. There's a few things. You check the freezer above the fridge as well. There's some like frozen microwave dinners, half a loaf of bread on the counter, box of Twinkies. Not a whole lot else.
Yeah, this is gonna be a problem. I'm just gonna take his beer. I am gonna take the 6-pack and the single. And I'm gonna walk back into the living room.
Jim notices the alcohol in your hand, and he just goes, well, can a man have his relaxation time? Gotta have something for himself.
Nasty Jim. And I look him in the eye as I open the single can. I just sip it. That's shit beer, bud. Don't even have any Molson. Christ. No, I just wanted to have a quick talk. Dead eye contact as he sips the beer, and he's just, I feel like you're ignoring the spirit of what we talked about previously about what we talked about where I was like, don't abuse your fucking kid or else I'll
break every bone in my fucking body.
That's right, Jim. So, bud, listen to me. Sit the fuck down.
He sits down immediately, just can't take his eyes off you.
I just put the 6-pack down on the floor and I just walk over and squat within arm's reach. You were lucky to have that little boy. He's a good fucking kid. Now, I get it. You work a shit job for shit pay for shit people. And I know that. I done that. I'm gonna make sure that you get some blankets and that you have money for food. However, I want to make 2 or 3 things crystal clear to you before I leave here this evening. Jim, you're a piece of shit. You really need somebody to keep you on the straight and narrow. Boy, you fucking need somebody to keep you from being just the worst dog shit piece of shit you can be, huh? So, reminder. 1, you don't shout at your goddamn boy unless he's done something real bad, like hurt somebody, which I don't think he's gonna do anytime soon. 2, just because you ain't hitting him doesn't mean you're not abusing him. I know maybe you had a daddy that hit you. I did. Fucking we all did. But Jim, that's not an excuse to perpetuate the cycle of abuse. That is simply bullshit. So, you are gonna actually give a fuck about him. And if you don't do it for his sake, then you're gonna do it for your sake. Because if I ever come around here and find the sitting room a fucking sweat box while a little boy is in his room without heat. Oh, Jim. Oh, Jim, the things I will fucking do that aren't killing you. And I can do those.
So I'd like a roll from Sylvestre here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like intimidation plus manipulation.
Sure.
Just to see how much he's going to react. You're definitely intimidating him. We've already established the relationship there, but I want to see just how terrified he is as you speak to him now.
A 9 and an 8, so 2 successes.
Okay. And he is mortal, and you've got this unsettling aura around you. So he just he looks for a moment when you first start talking to him and calling him a piece of shit. He looks like in his drunken sort of bravado, he wants to say something. And then as you go on, you can see him sort of sink back into himself. It's almost like his eyes are sinking further back into his skull, and his body language is tightening up, almost like he's going to curl up into a ball at any second. And he's shaking a little bit, though you don't know if it's from fear or from the alcohol or maybe a combination of both. But I'm a piece of shit. I've always been a piece of shit. I don't want my kid to be a piece of shit. No, I won't. I won't yell at him no more. I guess I'll try. I'm a goddamn piece of shit. And he just starts crying. Like that kind of drunk crying with snot coming out of his nose and his face turning red.
Yeah. The hand's just gonna reach out, put a hand on his shoulder, and just nice firm squeeze. Not enough to hurt, just enough to be a solid even when he's shaking, this arm is holding that side of him dead steady. And he's just like, see, the first step is acknowledging that you're part of the problem. You gotta make a conscious decision. And I think you're halfway there, Jim. You're halfway there. By being a good man, you will raise a good man, and that'll be good enough for me. Alrighty?
Oh, I'll try.
I know you will. Now, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring a couple of blankets around tomorrow. And, we'll get you all set up. Do you need extra hours at work? Is that part of the problem?
He slowly nods. Says, doing the hiring more people at part-time so they don't have to give us full-time stuff. And so I cut my hours again. And that's why and he gestures at the 3 empty cans and the one that he was holding when you came in. Told me today I was going from 23 to 18. How the fuck am I supposed to pay fucking rent in this place? Fuck.
No, I got you. That's, well, you know what I gotta say about that. That's all the capitalist bullshit. And the way society is made by predators for predators against good, honest working men. So, and he just, grabs his jaw and turns that, real slow. Nothing fast, just still predatory, though. Just turns the head so that Jim can't break eye contact. He's just like, remember, Jim, right now you're part of the problem, but you don't gotta be. You can be more. It'll be tiring. It's bullshit, and you'll hate me for it. But that's okay. You can hate me all you want, Jim. Guess what? You won't ever be able to hurt me, and that's fine. So, you're gonna take care of your boy. If you can be a good husband too, well, that's good on you, bud. But, you're gonna take care of your kid. You're gonna work your fucking ass off to figure out a better way. And Jim, the reason that I'm doing this, and he just squeezes just behind the jaw collar And he's just like, Jim, the reason I come on you like a fucking sack of bricks every time I hear you fucked up is because you are capable of so much more. You could be a good fella, bud, but you just ain't. That's not good enough. So, and he just lets go. And he's just like, remember, if you slip, I know about it, Jim. And I won't get you that day or the day after. And you might even get to thinking, fuck, I can do what I want. Jim, I'll come back and I'll get you. I will come at you after the sun goes down when you have gone to sleep, and I will tear you limb from limb. If you fall off the wagon.
Jim's just wide-eyed and staring. He all that sort of redness in his face from the alcohol and the onrush of tears is drained away, and he's just looking pale. And he's just nodding. He's like, uh-huh. He can't even get the words out. He's just, uh-huh.
That's a good man. Now, but if I'm honest, we gotta have a quick talk about your drinking.
And I think that's where we'll end this episode and our introduction to Sylvestre Le Voilette. Thank you for joining us. Thanks again, John. It's good to have you back. And we hope you will tune in next time when our new vampire meets the rest of the coterie. Thank you, and good night.